Good morning on this Sunday, March 16th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. The White House withdraws the nomination of Dr. David Weldon as head of the Atlanta-based CDC. Also, during emotional testimony, victims of sex trafficking plead with lawmakers over Governor Kemp's proposed tort reform bill. And Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens says no to a streetcar expansion on the Beltline's East Side Trail. Kathy, Phil, Theron, and Martha are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
The White House withdraws the nomination of Dr. David Weldon to serve as director of the Atlanta-based CDC. The decision came after reports he had a lack of support in the Senate because of his stance on vaccines. So right to the panel. Kathy, welcome back. We'll start with you this week and get your thoughts on where do we go from here when it comes to the CDC under this administration.
Well, as you know, I've been out of the country watching things from afar. Let me tell you, people are worried all over the world about what the heck's going on here. But I'm glad to see them taking this nomination down. Of course, we know whoever comes next is also going to be probably somebody we want to look at closely. But I think the whole issue of vaccines and you know, health monitoring and other things is just critical. And we see it with the measles outbreak, with Ebola in Uganda, you know, with you know, preparation for the flu season next year. That we have to have all hands on deck for this.
Martha.
Well, I think for the pro-life community, this was disappointing, okay, because he is a very strong pro-life person. But I think you've got to look at all the pieces that are happening here. My sources tell me this was something to give Chuck Schumer, because he was about to say he was going to support the CR bill. So that there's a few pieces in there. So they wanted to give something to Democrats so that they would feel a little better about coming forward and saying they're going to support the CR bill. So I'm disappointed about it, but again, I think we'll get a good pick in there.
Okay, we got lots to talk about with the Trump administration, and the legal battle over federal employees continues. A federal judge on Thursday ordered the Trump administration to reinstate thousands of probationary workers who were let go in mass firings across multiple agencies. Theron, the judge saying it's a really sad day when our government would fire some good employee and say it was based on performance when they know good and well that that's a lie. Those were some very strong words from the federal judge.
Well, we talked about on this show when the Trump administration came in and with Elon Musk, and we done our best to try to explain to our viewers Doge, but we instantly, Kathy and I and Melita, thought that this was just unnecessary, but also a lot of us thought that it was not legal. And so it took some times for the judges to intervene. And what this judge has come back and saying that these hard working women and men were fired basically for no reason, and particularly the people who were the probationary workers, many of whom just got on the job. There was no merit-based sort of metrics-driven reason why they were fired. And so the administration told us they were going to make mistakes. Well, I've stopped counting, but I think we're probably up now to about half a dozen mistakes of different departments that they've wrongly terminated these folks. And so I'm happy that these folks will be getting their jobs back. But this shows you the irresponsibility of this new administration by rushing to fire people who should not be fired and not following the law.
But the Trump administration is going to appeal, so this is not over yet.
They're appealing, and what people on both sides of the aisle politically should not like is judge shopping. Now, both sides do it. You had this judge that you're talking about said, no, you got to reinstate them. You had a judge last month say, no, the president has the power to do this. And I would push back on Theron a bit, because we're trying to slim down and make these departments more efficient. Just with the CDC, Biden hired several thousand just in his term because of DEI and stuff that had no business with the CDC. And I would agree with you, though, Kathy. I think that Dave Weldon was the wrong pick because of the vaccine problem. But anyhow, I think that far more good is being done with these departments to trim them down and be more efficient. We talked about the VA last week. Yeah. That's the whole point. Doug Collins was trying to say services are not going to be affected, but there's bureaucracy that needs to be cut. And he found millions and millions of multi-millions of contracts that he's voiding. So this is good stuff that Doge is doing.
Well, not everybody thinks it's good stuff, Kathy, because we saw a lot of activists really targeting Tesla this week and burning cars and doing vandalism. So a lot of folks are it's a very high tense situation.
Well, I'm not so much on the vandalism, but I am very much supportive supportive of people coming out and speaking their mind and resisting and taking action that they need to take, because this is not the way to cut government. You know, it would be very easy for Congress to assume its role and say, we want to see 10% cut across the board, bring us your plan, what are you going to do, where do you need more money if you want to use technology to improve things. But that's not what's happening. What we're going in there and just saying, well, we're going to cut 1,500 people here, we're going to cut 80,000 people there. There is no way you cut 80,000 people out of the VA and maintain services when already they're having a challenge to maintain those services. So this isn't the way to operate government or a business, for that matter.
We saw that with the Department of Education this week. I think it was 1,300 employees cut.
Right, and many of the services are going to go into other departments, and things are going to be handled as I've checked with people, and of course I am on the State Board of Education, so I want to be full disclosure on that, but that they don't see that any services are going to be impacted by it, and money hasn't been impacted at this point. Want to let folks know that on Tuesday I'm going to be having the Doge Caucus on my program for a full hour talking about what they're doing and how they're doing it, so that you can tune into that and find out about that. But also, you know, I know we talk about thousands here, thousands there, but when the actual federal government report came out, the labor report came out last week, the net difference in jobs in the federal government was 10,000 for that month. Okay, so if you were reading news reports, you would have thought it was hundreds of thousands, and I don't know what the actual number is, but our own government said the net difference in jobs in the federal government, 10,000. 2.5 million employees, 10,000 probably happens every single month as far as the net difference. So I'm just saying we've got to get to the bottom of it, and the reason why we know this is because this administration's been transparent. The last 4 years everything was done in secret, and we're finding out about it now. Now we're seeing it transparently, and it is uncomfortable. I'm not going to deny that, but I don't think it is skies falling, hair on fire kind of stuff. And the reason why a man like Elon Musk has to do this, because when people go after your livelihood, they're not just disagreeing with him. He's not the richest man in the world anymore, which is fine, okay? But they went after his businesses, they've threatened his life, they want to do that. That's not right, and we should all stand against that.
And Kathy did.
That's a lot. Well, listen, I mean, I got to tell you, I don't think that this is transparent at all. I think Congress needs to step up and use its oversight power and have hearings on each of these departments and hear from the cabinet secretaries about how they want to make these changes. I think most Americans, given a real plan on how we're going to cut services and, you know, cut budgets, cut services, cut people, whatever we're going to do, but there is no plan. I have no idea.
The cabinet secretaries do have a plan, and Musk is working with them.
Yeah, but the public hasn't seen that plan.
Well, go on the website. Have you done that?
I would like to see Congress hold hearings, ask questions, and use their oversight power.
They could do that. No, they can do that.
But they haven't.
Well, they should.
Haven't.
I'll go along with you on that one. But the cabinet secretaries are the ones that are empowered to work with Musk, and I agree with Martha.
They were empowered about a week ago.
Well,
after things really hit ahead, when it was clear
but
Musk has no authority to fire anybody in federal government.
He has presidential authority.
You
know that.
No, he doesn't have any authority. He is an advisor.
Come on.
He's an advisor. He doesn't get to send emails to people and fire them. You have a lot of people
that have the authority that work for the president.
They do not have the authority to fire
people. Well, I think
people.
it's transparent.
All right, we're going to move on because the Trump administration has announced plans to relocate the Small Business Administration office from downtown Atlanta, citing the city's immigrant-friendly policies as the reason for the move. Now, SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler told Fox 5 that they need to make sure that they're located in places that care about the safety and security of their people. But one city official here in Atlanta pushed back against Loeffler's claims that Atlanta is a sanctuary city, telling Fox 5 that cannot be because such policies are banned under Georgia state law. Theron.
Atlanta is a welcoming city, and that is something that this current mayor, mayors before him, council members, city council presidents, when we saw that this became a challenge for cities to deal with the immigration influx that was happening in cities all over, we instantly came out and said that we're a welcoming city. Now, what Kelly Loeffler is doing is that we got to wait and see what the cities that she select, and she's been pretty vocal since day 2, I think she got the office, that she wanted to look at moving these offices. But what I care deeply about is a video that she did where there were empty desks, people not there. So I would hope that she's working to make sure that those folks are not being fired, but they're actually working. And if we need them back in the office, to make sure that these small businesses get this services. So I think we got to give her a little bit of grace here. She's got to get her plan through, but ultimately, I think classifying Atlanta as a sanctuary city is just not true.
Well, I thought that was a very effective video, by the way.
And real quickly, she did that on the Friday, her first day in office, and on Monday she did another follow-up video where everyone was at work. 80% of the people were at work, and I think that was really positive that she did that. I mean, I hope she doesn't take the office out of Atlanta either, but I understand moving offices around.
Or maybe she'll take it to Metro Atlanta.
Real quick, the optics were bad when former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms canceled the ICE, the Immigration Customs Enforcement contract with the jail. Now, mainly it's going to be up to Sheriff Pat Labat to ensure that he'll be working with the feds. So we got to watch that. I think that's where Kelly Loeffler is concerned.
Because we have so much room in the jail. That'll be good.
Well, there's other jails to put people.
We need a new jail.
Do I have time for one more quick one in this block? Okay. Nearly 2 years after being renamed, the U.S. Army base near Columbus will receive another name, and it will sound familiar. Fort Moore will be changed back to Fort Benning, this time named after a World War I veteran, Fred Benning, not Confederate General Henry Benning. Kathy.
You know, today there are so few things to have to worry about relative to this particular consideration, but I'm really sorry that General Hal Moore and his wife Julia's name will be taken off of it, because they deserve the recognition that they got in the renaming. But again, in the scheme of things, I'm more interested in the services we're going to deliver to veterans than what we call their office.
So when I first started doing radio, the show was not called The Martha Zoller Show. And one day our owner met me in the parking lot and said, you know, everybody calls it the Martha Zoller Show when I meet them out in the public, so now I'm going to call them that. I think you had the same thing going on with Fort Moore and Fort Benning. Everybody was still calling it Fort Benning, so they just went back to Fort Benning.
Former President Biden should never have changed the names. That's what started all of this.
All right.
And I had active duty at Fort Gordon in the Army. I went back to Fort Gordon.
They let you in? They let you back in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, coming up. Victims of sex trafficking plead with Georgia lawmakers who are considering tort reform. We'll discuss after the break.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
During emotional testimony, several victims of sex trafficking and their advocates pleaded with House members to change the tort reform bill that has already passed the state Senate. They say if passed, the bill would only hurt their chances to hold hotels and businesses accountable that ignore the signs of abuse. Martha, considering how strong First Lady Marty Kemp is on cracking down on sex trafficking, how likely are we to see a carve-out in this bill?
I think very likely, okay? I think that this was a brilliant move, actually, to bring highlights, because this is one of those bills that people don't understand, okay? It is the governor's number one goal. He says he'll bring in a special session on it. If he doesn't get it in this session, he's using a lot of political capital, but it was pretty brilliant to use this particular tactic because of Marty Kemp's stand on this. So I think you'll see a carve out for it. I do think it's still going to pass, even though you can tell it's getting close because it's getting really heated.
Theron, what do you think the chances are of getting this through?
Well, the thing that our viewers should know is that Speaker Burns created this subcommittee to do exactly what is happening, to hear all sides. And so I sympathize with the sex victims, the human trafficking that's going on, and it does happen in hotels. The testimonies were very hard to listen to, and it was very hard to watch. And many Democrats and Republicans afterwards, United Front, said, hey, we got to continue to make sure we work together to stop that. But Lori, I'll tell you, there was some other testimony with some farmers, people in the agriculture community. There were some folks who were small business owners who talked about how they want to continue to operate their businesses with these high insurance costs, many of whom can't move zip codes. They have to be where they are. And you also heard the governor and his proponents push back that a lot of the things that was sort of being mischaracterized in this bill, they address. And so Martha is right. There has been talk about some type of conversations, but as we take, the governor and the proponents of this bill said, no, we're going to keep it as is, but there are going to be some conversations about what you can do and kind of move it through. But the governor's been defiant that we need to do something in Georgia. They put forth some good statistics, and it's not just, again, it's not just big insurance. Now that's a conversation that we're having, but it's all these other businesses, these physicians and people who are really, really getting hit hard and paying a lot of money because of the current state of the law in Georgia.
Phil.
Yeah, I would agree with how you framed that, and I think that I don't know about a carve out, but I know that there's probably going to be some language changes with regard to the sex trafficking. I do think this, it is going to be tough, and you were right. I've never seen the governor in this whole term push so hard for something like this. And it's going to be close votes. There's going to be, I mean, I was over there Thursday afternoon, and there was still back and forth and horse trading on the tort reform. I call it more lawsuit abuse because of these crazy jury verdicts, and that's what they want to target. So it's going to be right down to the wire with this.
Kathy?
Well, I think some of the changes on the jury verdict side, you know, now they're going to bifurcate the trials, right? There's going to be a trial to determine if the person's liable, and then they'll go do the whole trial all over again to see what the liability, you know, is. And I think that's going to clog up the court system. I think it's going to cost more money. It's going to be a real burden on the people who have already suffered, especially, you know, because they will have been determined that somebody's liable. I think we also have to be really clear. This is not going to lower your insurance premiums. The insurance industry has said it. Everybody said it. Don't think for a minute that it's going to do that. And I think the other piece is we've got to really look and make sure the definitions are really clear, because the unintended consequences could be very harmful.
I want to touch on another topic coming out of the legislature that's kind of breaking this week, which was the House stripped out about $100 million from the Georgia Promise Scholarship, which is, I call it the School Voucher Act. There's going to be a lot of fighting on this one, I would assume, Phil, because I know that Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones is very concerned about the foster kids and getting them covered under the scholarship.
That's right, and I was surprised when you brought that to my attention, and like you say, it's breaking. This is a very popular Promise Scholarship. I think it's almost all filled up because it's capped. But I think, and again, if you go back to last Thursday when the legislature was breaking up, just like tort reform, there was a back and forth between the House and the Senate. Very, very tough talk on both sides with regard to the budget. There needs to be some cuts. And so the House is saying, well, you're cutting this, I'm going to cut that. It's the old thing we've seen for forever between the two chambers. Even though one party controls the chambers, that doesn't always mean things get done smoothly. So I hope that money's restored.
All right, we'll be watching. A huge $10 billion data center campus is proposed in Troup County and could bring 600 jobs to the area. Darren, Georgia's quickly becoming the epicenter for these data centers.
Listen, this is another conversation that's happening at the Capitol, and you know, when we saw that breaking news, it was something like, wow, the number just really, you know, stands out to you. But these data centers are bringing jobs. We can have a conversation, could they bring more jobs? We are an attractive state because landowners are saying, hey, we'll go through the process to make sure that these data centers come. Now, you got to make sure that you continue to communicate with the residents, because some of them want to make sure that if a data center is being built near my neighborhood where we live, are we going to be safe, and is it going to bring more things that we don't want? But Laura, let me tell you this, based on what I'm hearing, and I know you're hearing, I mean, and shout out to Georgia Power, the EMCs, MEAG, and all them, they're getting inundated with responses and people reaching out because they need electricity, they need power, and these are big customers to these utility companies. So I think this is just one of the many that we're going to have. But I like the fact that they're bringing jobs, and Troup County, LaGrange is an area that needs these jobs.
And more that you drive through some parts of Georgia and you see signs that say no data centers, so it's controversial.
Well, and there's been a lot of misinformation about a bill that didn't cross over that was going to have lower rates for data centers. That bill did not actually cross over, so you don't have to worry about that. Tricia Pridemore has been very proactive on the Public Service Commission in educating people about what's happening related to this. Data centers are big, though, but you've got also, we're in the running, Georgia's in the running for the Taiwan semiconductor investment that's just come out, which that's going to be a similar kind of thing that's going to need a lot of energy if we get that. So there's a lot of big projects, and I think Georgia Power is staying ahead of that.
All right, up next, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens puts the brakes on expanding the streetcar to the east side. We'll discuss next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens says expanding the streetcar to the Beltline's east side is not a good idea. Kathy, over to you. The mayor's folks say they are committed to building rail on the Beltline, just not in the form previously discussed.
Because previously we were committed to that, and now we're not. And you know, I can't really go into all the detail I'd love to go to, but here's the thing. On the Northeast Corridor, it is the most transit-ready piece. All of the underground conduit is there, and the ridership is built out. That said, on the south side, where we also need rail, are the most transit dependent riders. So there's nothing wrong with going to the east side, except I don't see anything in the plan that actually gets it on the Beltline. And this mayor's not going to do anything. He was chair of the transportation committee. He has indicated no knowledge of how you do something like this, and he has messed around with it for 4 years. So this is an election gambit. But let's be more concerned about how he's jerking MARTA around too. I'm no big fan of MARTA, but we're going to have the 5 Point Station under construction during the Super Bowl and during the World Cup, and that was something that was to be avoided, and now we're still in the middle of a mess with him.
Phil.
Well, you know, I'm going to have to agree with you on MARTA. I think that the mayor has not explained fully. It is a complicated issue. I think that it's got heated this past week, and I think they need to negotiate more and let calmer heads prevail. But on the with regard to the Beltline, this is rare for me. I don't have a strong opinion either side. I want to hear more from the mayor's plan, but you're making some good points.
Yeah, there's no plan. But
yeah, I think we have to stay tuned. When the mayor made this announcement, I think it caught a lot of MARTA board members by surprise. I know MARTA is going to probably definitely reach out to the mayor and talk more in detail about this plan. And so it will evolve. I think now he's made his decision. The MARTA board will go back and look at it, and the MARTA staff, and I think they'll go back and they'll figure out what's best as far as moving the city forward.
It's a story of two competing audits.
Well, he's also talking about autonomous vehicles and bus rapid transit.
Well, I mean,
rail.
I think Kathy's points.
But MARTA stands by their audit results, and the city is standing by theirs. Now, MARTA hasn't backed down on that, but I'm talking about, to Kathy's point, what do we do as far as the future with ready, available trails and these substations and everything we had kind of talked about?
Well, and to that future point, and Kathy's right about where it's ready is not where the people really need to be riding it. But I think, and this is a hard thing to say, really, whoever the next mayor is, and I hope it's Andre Dickens, I know he's running for re-election, they've got to take a stance on transportation, and it's almost got to be their only stance. I know they get pulled in all these different directions, but I'm a kid that my family voted for MARTA to be expanded into cab in Fulton County way back when, and we're not much better off than we were then. And it's going to take someone that's willing for this to be their last political job, to be focused on transportation only, because you make everybody unhappy until it's finished.
All right, all good points. Grady, health officials want the community's input before beginning construction of a new freestanding emergency room in the southern part of Fulton County. The emergency room is set to open in the fall of 2026. It will be located in Union City and be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I know that this will be welcome news.
Yeah, I mean, our good friend Mayor Vince Williams, who is Union City Mayor, has been talking to Grady. I'm glad Grady is doing this. You know, we've had some hospitals, unfortunately, have to close in this region. A lot of folks who live on the south side of this region, south side of Fulton County, need to have this access and this emergency 24 hours a day, 7 days a week opportunity. I think is one that is good, and we should do everything we can do. We should make it happen.
Phil, we don't hear a lot about new emergency rooms opening up.
No, we don't, and I second the motion. I think that the Union City Mayor and the council and Grady are to be commended for this.
Kathy?
I just want to give a shout out to CEO John Halpert. You know, ever since he arrived at Grady some many years ago now, you know, he has taken it from being something that was always controversial and in the news to an incredibly well-run system that's now expanding in places where, you know, it's hard for other systems to figure out the business model, and kudos to him.
Great point. And Martha, even the fact that they're getting community input and having, you know, hearings about what do people want, what do people need.
Yeah, because people only interact with the emergency room when they need it, and then they don't realize, and you hope you don't interact with the emergency room, right? So I think that there's a theme here on all these issues we've talked about: transparency and communication. But that's what we need.
And PR, good PR.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
All right, coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Kathy, we'll start with you.
Okay, great. I got a couple of winners here. First of all, the Fulton County Elections Department just got their report back from the monitors. They've made over 700 visits and remarked on the incredible transition we've had there with a new leadership, a new hub, and just getting down to business. So congrats to them. Also, congrats to former U.S. Representative Carolyn Bordeaux. She's the new CEO at the Concord Coalition. This is a bipartisan budget organization nomination. I think we vastly need her experience and this bipartisan conversation about the budget, so I'm looking forward to more from them. Losers, my freak of the week. Representative Andrew Clyde, he put all of his congressional heft into sanding off the Black Lives Matter posters on the roads in D.C. Because, that was uppermost in the minds of his constituents. But of course he wouldn't know that because he won't hold a town hall meeting. So he's my freak of the week.
Freak of the week. All right, Phil.
He's my winner. Let the jackhammers continue on that, and I don't want political messages of any kind on streets. But anyhow, Rick Allen was one of the original members of the Georgia Gang, and he is my winner. He's got a new book, Reckoning with Race, and it's about the tumultuous time of the civil rights era in the 60s. And Theron, your mentor, is mentioned in here a lot. It's a good read. You can get it on Amazon. Reckoning with Race by Rick Allen. And my winners are those that survived the time change last week. I wish they could do one or the other.
I know.
But stop the switching.
Tell me about it, Theron.
First, happy birthday to Andrew Young, 93 years old. Also, he's teamed up with Fulton County Solicitor Keith Gamage to do their Freedom Friday program, which will help those with criminal records find new pathways. Also, want to thank everyone who went to Selma, Alabama. Lori, it was March 7, 1965, when Hosea Williams and John Lewis and hundreds of others marched across Edmonds Pettus Bridge. And also want to give a shout out to Moses Williams, who works at the state capitol. Phil, he enjoyed our exchange last week.
I heard about that exchange, Martha.
I want to thank Matt Dudnick for hosting me for Crossover Day. He actually has a great career as a producer for radio. He'll be great.
Nice.
And then John Ossoff had a poll where he was even with a Republican until they told him about his vote on keeping boys out of women's sports, and then he was down 14 points.
All right, we'll be watching. Thanks again, and thank you for watching. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.